Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Perspective. And we will try and understand the impact of the Maha Kumbh 2025. A phenomenal, mammoth organizational effort. There is a huge amount of funds that have gone in to try and also create a separate tent district, manage crores of devotees. In fact, more than 25 crore, 22 crores in excess of what was anticipated had actually turned up. But in this edition, we'll try and focus on the impact this would perhaps have, the economical impact, not the spiritual, but the socio-economic impact that a Maha Kumbh-like event will have, and what it means when a Bharat can actually show to the world that we can organize this. Will this perhaps kickstart an economy in distress? Can this be perhaps a potent economic model that can be perhaps increased or spread across in frequency across the country at various confluences, and take this entire concept of a Kumbh economics into a Mela economics and closely towards the Dharmanomics aspect where the temple economy is perhaps revived? How easy or difficult is it? Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had a few interesting observations to make in the assembly. Let's listen into that before we go across to our guests.
उत्तर प्रदेश की अर्थव्यवस्था में 3.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए से अधिक का इससे अंतर आने वाला है। ये विरासत को विकास के साथ जोड़ने का परिणाम है और यह विजन दिया है प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने, देश को दिया है। 13 जनवरी से लेकर के 27-28 फरवरी तक इन 45-50 दिनों तक पूरी काशी पूरी तरह पैक थी। 5 लाख से लेकर के 25 लाख श्रद्धालु प्रतिदिन वहां पे दर्शन करता था, मां गंगा में स्नान भी करता था और काशी के इस वैभव को भी देखता था, इस कलेवर और कायाकल्प को भी देख करके विभूत होता था और काशी के साथ साथ प्रदेश और देश के विकास में भी अपना योगदान करता था।
So there has been a surge not just in Prayagraj and the economy there. All of Uttar Pradesh's economy has witnessed a boom. Ayodhya, Varanasi and a lot of the other regions have also seen a huge amount of footfall, and with the footfall there is also spending. Has there been an economic surge? Joining us now, Sriram Balasubramaniam and Shantanu Gupta. Namaste, gentlemen. Your thoughts on, can this model be extrapolated and can this perhaps become a unique template to Bharat? Sriram.
Thank you, Anand. Thanks for inviting me here again. Indeed, so, if you recall, a lot of my research has been trying to push the needle on this. And I think the Maha Kumbh is a classic example. I think we're at an inflection point in terms of even the national economic policy. According to recent estimates, government estimates, we are looking at the last quarter's GDP to be about around 7.6%. Before the Maha Kumbh, it was estimated to be about 5.6%. There's a recent Bloomberg article which I also shared with you, which reaffirms some of this position. Dr. V. Ananthanageshwaran, the chief economic advisor himself, speaks about the huge spending that happened during this massive event. The fact that you had more than 650 million people who came to a particular place over a 45-day window does not just have one aspect is the state government's impact, right? For example, the correlation of about 7,500 crores, about 5,000 from the state, and then about 2,100 crores from the center, and of course all the affiliated expenditure leads to almost, say, 2.5 lakh crores, of estimated revenue. Just to give you some context, right, for your viewers, the state GDP of Uttar Pradesh in 2023-2024 was 25.8 lakh crores. So we're looking at almost a 10%, figure of the state's GDP, even if this estimate is higher, assuming the cynics say that this is on a higher front, right? Let's assume even if it's 1.5 lakh crores, that's still 5 to 10% of the state's GDP, which is a huge number, right? Especially when I've often argued that this is the very important case of highly inelastic demand. In very simple terms, the Maha Kumbh will still attract 400 million people in another 12 years or whenever the Sangamam is going to happen, right? Irrespective of what the RBI's interest rate is, what inflation rate is, irrespective of whether you're a nation state itself, right? Which means that it provides a huge opportunity because you have so many people congregated in a particular area for a variety of affiliated sectors to get boosted in terms of tourism, in terms of food, in terms of, transportation, in terms of getting the bureaucracy to come and invest so much time. I mean, all of us have been here. Shantanu has been there for a long time. We are live to witness to see how efficiently a lot of things was done despite so much crowd. So I think this brings together the entire system to deliver on policy and economic outcomes. And I think this is an important inflection point because it provides, especially during downturns, when there is a recession, when there is a slowdown in economic activity, it provides a huge opportunity for policymakers to invest their time on such huge events, which provide a catalyst for the economic boom, obviously for the state primarily, but that region particularly, Prayagraj, benefits a lot because of all this affiliated infrastructure, the indirect and direct economies of scale. And then the state, of course, benefits because of an extension, because most people, affiliated would go to, say, other areas in Uttar Pradesh, like Ayodhya, Kashi, and other sort of sectors. And because of the fact that a state like UP is so big and an event such as this scale is so huge, it obviously has an impact on the national accounts as well.
Shantanu, before you weigh in, there was a rickshaw puller who said that he's earned the kind of money that he never thought he would earn. And in about a week's time, he's earned 4 times what he would earn in 6 months. And he said, my only request to Modi and Yogi is to do it once in every 3-4 months or once in at least 2-3 years, do something big like this because it's significant. Shantanu, your thoughts, is that possible? Because there were a lot of gaps too. Although there was very efficient administration, there were a lot of gaps. There were a few fly-by-night operators who perhaps did not give the value that some people wanted, and all of it was allowed to be slid because this is an event that was happening once in 144 years. A lot of people came to this Kumbh thinking it's happening once in 144 years. It's the only time I'll get to do this in my lifetime, so let me not miss out. So this FOMO also contributed to quite a bit. But the numbers that Sriram shares, you will have far more numbers because I think those numbers are going to be only upwardly revised if you were to go by the UP government's estimates. Shantanu.
Exactly, Anand. I think, as you know, I stayed there for 31 days. I went I keep saying I went as a tourist and came back as a devotee, and was so fortunate to meet you and we take the dip together.
Yes.
That was fun. See, as Sriram said, the numbers were humongous, and the size of the Mela was almost double of what it used to be in earlier years. It is 4,000 hectares, 25 sectors. Every sector is 2 to 3 kilometers, and every sector is almost independent, right? It has one fire station, to its temporary school, to its safai gangs, to its set of eateries also, right? And from its own lost and found center. So every sector was a ecosystem in itself. I did some self-surveys. Like the first week in the sector I was staying, 23 sector, there were some 720 shops, right? By the time the Mela ended, the shops were already doubled. So all the chota shops emerged. Let's say the water cane in which you take the Ganga Jal. People realized that everyone wants not a small. People were carrying as if they're supplied to the whole family, right? People were carrying like multiple 2-3 liters. They started, right? Because it was cold in the starting, later it became a little hot. So those kind of beverages shops started, right? Earlier, the Tika thing was only 3-4 Panditjis. Now, by the end, there were 16-17 Panditjis because a lot of people wanted to go to the Sangam exactly to the tip. So the number of boats increased. Even Yogi Adityanath shared that one big boat group, which has 130 boats, they end up earning some 30 crores real profit, right? So, and because I became friends with a lot of local vendors, normally these local vendors don't share their income. They don't find it very comfortable. उनको लगता है कि शगुन अच्छा नहीं है, ज़्यादा अपने पैसे बताएंगे तो. But by the time I became friends, they said what we earn in a year, we earned in this 45 days. Like a small tea vendor earn of the order 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees, and the big vendors, like they earn almost, their revenue was almost 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees a day. Wow. These are all food vendors, right? Similarly with mala vendors, similarly with all these kalava, murti vendors. So as Sriram said, when this was like, a lot of these things were not anticipated. You also told the estimated numbers was 40-45 crores, but it ended up with 66.3 crores. And in the end, a lot of things have to be rearranged. Let's say a lot of safai gangs has to be doubled up because a lot more crowds were coming, right? And towards I think 2 weeks after the Mela, there's a new tradition of leaving your clothes. Your wet clothes also started. So that created more garbage. And then government started how to reprocess these clothes. and they're doing something very smart with those clothes also. So it was a huge bedrock for innovation also. I met a professor from MIT. He's saying that this was the largest data collection of face recognition ever happened in the history of artificial intelligence. So from multiple angles, it was phenomenal, and economy wise, and as you rightly said, even when 5% people of Prayag went to Ayodhya and Kashi, that the numbers were humongous. We already know that in Ayodhya, 13.5 crore people turned in 2024. I'm saying generally, not Prayag only. And this is more than Taj Mahal, which is like, Taj Mahal is like a branded thing in Lonely Planets and Seven Wonders of the World. Even then, Ayodhya attracted more tourism. Similarly, even for Mathura, which is not even renovated yet in its full glory. So, and there are 150, 200 towns in India which run on religious economy. Tirupati itself is a 2,000 crore rupee economy, from Sai Baba to a Kavar Yatra. Just a Kavar Yatra of 2 weeks create a 300 crore rupees economy in the west of UP. So now, because now it's a thing, right? Like a edtech and fintech. Now we have faith tech. There are a lot of companies who are doing technology around faith, pujas online to prasads online to a lot of Indian attires online. In fact, it's become I find a lot of young people wearing very stylish new kind of dhotis and kurtas and gamchas. So I think it's a new lifestyle change and a lot of new things, a lot of new syllables around it. So in lifestyle to what cosmetics, like what food you eat, a lot of things got changed, and the effect will be far reaching, because the effect from, so this 66.3 crore people came from whole of India. So this money is not only UP gained from it, like everyone gained from it, and still Kumbh merchandise is selling online. It seems big time. A lot of people told me who are into Kumbh merchandise. So I think it has to be researched and investigated multiple ways and multiple months after the Kumbh also.
But Sriram, can we extrapolate it across the country into other models? Can we create 10 such Kumbh-like events once in every 2 years, which perhaps keeps this economic bump up going? Or will there be a certain level of lethargy? Because each one has to have an individual hook which will bring in such people, not just public-private partnership, but more importantly, more public to come there.
Right. See, the Maha Kumbh is, as you say, once in probably a 144-year event, right? People from across the world. I mean, I attended the Kumbh after many invitations, and I took bikes to eventually go to the Triveni Sangamam, thanks to Shantanuji and a few others. So it was a mega adventure, put it that way, right? But we don't need to look at that scale for every event. I think there are two things we need to look at, right? One is the underlying principle that these are all part of this dharmic way of life, the cultural way of life, which is going to take its own path, right? And because of this cultural way of life in this land, all these events, come along the way through the entire cultural calendar cycle, through the year. Unlike the other countries, in Bharat, through the year, you have a variety of these events, which where people go naturally because of a variety of factors related to culture and cultural economic value, right? So the Maha Kumbh is an exception, but at the state level, at the district level, there are a lot of these micro sort of economies that can help to boost local economic activity, right? The scale might be much lesser compared to the Maha Kumbh, but it provides you a good template, which means, if you're able to look at this cultural cycle throughout the year, where, for example, either in Tirupati or you look at other states where there are a variety of festivals, temple-related festivals is one part of this ecosystem. Another part is sort of a cultural ecosystem like the Kumbh, where you have a particular activity where people congregate.
Correct.
So there are a lot of these micro clusters in each states where, individually at a lower scale, this can be aggregated, right? So what it basically does is, at the state level, it helps to create local economies of scale for that region, that particular sub-region, and then if possible at the state level itself. And then you have a template where a variety of other affiliated sectors are provided, economic activities, economic thrust. And when you aggregate this over a period of time, then I think it makes a substantive impact, or at least a reasonable impact, at the national level as well. So I think what is required is, local level calibration of this, local level targeting of this, I'll give you another instance, right? For example, the Uttar Pradesh government has this one product, one village concept.
Yeah, one district, one product, ODOP.
Yeah, that is a very, very interesting concept, right? That is another example of how I call decentralized economies of scale. So if you're able to cater to such local needs based on these local economies of scale, because essentially, if you really think about it, the temple and the sort of dharmic ecosystem plays a very important role in driving economic activity besides its spiritual, religious, at the village level, right? So if you're able to do local economies of scale, then for the tier 2, tier 3 towns, it provides an interesting economic surge. Of course, you're not going to get a scale like the Maha Kumbh has, but it really redefines or provides a catalyst, has the ability to provide a catalyst, at the local level to boost economies of scale.
So you're saying if we look at say 720 districts of our country, and each district does at least one event where perhaps the investment is about 10 to 20 crores or 30 crores, but the output is a few thousand crores, then you are able to create a certain boost where perhaps not 5-10 lakh people come to that event. You double or triple that number and make sure that about 30-50 lakh people come, and then there is a local economic boost. And if there are 720 events like that that generate that kind of money, then overall, if you were to see, it will have a huge impact on keeping the economy going and rolling the economy. Sriram?
Yes, especially, just one point on it, especially when there is there's a slowdown in consumption activity. There's a slowdown in economic activity. The general conventional trend is, or normal economic norms is, either the government puts in money in terms of stimulus, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, or the Reserve Bank of India, for example, reduces interest rates,
right,
and things like that, right? But these type of events provide you the flip, during slowdowns far more than when there is a boom, right? So that is the scope. That is, you're exactly right. So when you aggregate it, when you create local economies of scale and expand it, when there's a consumption slowdown, this has a potential to sort of boost some of the activities in that localized area.
Right. Has Yogi Adityanath figured out this Dharmanomics model, if I may use that term, although it's Sriram's book title, but if I may use that term and say, has Yogi figured this out? Shantanu, has he figured out that if in Uttar Pradesh, if he's able to create 5 such events across the year, where there is a footfall upward about 5-7 crore people, I will be able to create a certain level of demand and keep UP going?
I'm saying if you get from UP circles, this discussion is not new. This is going on from the last 3 to 4 years. And I'm sure you must have realized how the word corridor is very common in UP bureaucracy. Let's say a Mathura corridor or a now Kushinagar corridor to a Sarnath corridor. So basically what they mean by a corridor is mean that making the temple premise more grand so that it can accommodate more people, so that the coming there is very easy. And from end to end, from airport to taxi services to reaching there, once you're there, eateries, the religious activities are far more sorted, right? And also adding a big event to it. So when did you as a journalist cover Dev Deepavali in such a big fashion, apart from last 4 or 5 years?
Correct.
When did you cover the Choti Diwali? Like UP government has now 9 Guinness Book of World Record on them, with number of diyas increasing every year, and that's a huge event. And a lot of foreign tourists. Ayodhya, be no point in case, like all 15 big hotel chains have taken big lands in Ayodhya and they're making big properties there, right? Similarly, in Kashi is already a little developed city because of BHU and Kashi Vishwanath being there in their capacity. But with this new set of tourists, which is almost 10 to 15 times of the earlier tourist rush before 2019. So this infrastructure is already coming up and this economy is identified. What UP government has done a brilliant thing for the smaller temples. UP government has identified 250 private temples in whole of Uttar Pradesh, right? Private temples means run by some trust, and added a corridor with a private money to the temple, which is a very interesting thing with the PWD money. They added a corridor so the Katha Vachak can come there and hold a Katha there for 3 days. Well, that's also huge revenue. And then maybe a Astha TV and Sanskar TV can come and cover it and telecast it, right? And that's also advertisement revenue. So UP government, it's like in their one trillion economy agenda, faith tech and money coming from the faith tourism, it's one of the discussed things, not a hush-hush thing. It's like a properly discussed thing. And one of the verticals that someone like Alok Kumar, who is leading it, we will talk about the religious economy, and they are developing Namisharanya to the places which are already up there in public memory, but they're not developed and their access is not so easy. So airports coming up there, corridors coming up there, reaching out to the hoteliers so they can set up shops there. Everything is happening in planned fashion in Uttar Pradesh. And during the Mela, I just took a 3-day detour and went to Tirupati, and there was a 1800 temple expo. So now temple expo is a thing that's happening where a lot of temple vendors are coming together and saying what all a temple need to manage a temple properly. So I think this ecosystem is developing well and good, I think now.
Yeah, but there is a thin line between making it commercially viable to commercialization. Now, how are we going to draw the line there? Because the moment things get too commercialized, that's also a deterrent for those who come there largely for a spiritual experience and for a soul seeking experience. Shantanu first and then Sriram. Yeah.
Yeah. See, so let's say take the example of Prayagraj Kumbh. Out of the 66.3 crore people, my calculation is out of this tourist kind of people, right? Which I guess the tourists which came because of this glaze bits and the FOMO that I may not be building, not more than 50 lakhs to a crore, right? Because if you see all the capacities of all the tents, hotels is largely 3 to 4 lakh rooms, right? If 3 to 4 lakh rooms are filled every day or 45 days, right? It's what, like 1 crore people, right?
Yeah.
So 60, 64, 65 crore people came on their own faith. See, I went to drop my mother once to the railway station because she had to go to Rishikesh. And multiple people asked me, they thought I'm looking a little well informed, where is Sangam? They asked, where is Sangam, and start walking. And that's the way they start walking to the Sangam, right? And if you ask them, oh, is it too much inconvenience to walk to Sangam? They say, no, it's a walking Mela. If you can't walk, sit home, right?
Yeah.
So the urban sensibilities of reaching to the place in your cars and are also clashing there, were clashing there in Prayagraj. So I think the core Shraddhalu was anyway reaching there, and it was all facilitated by well drinking water, a lot of facilities to retire and see, a lot of costly eateries and cheap eateries and free eateries. So I think the government should make sure that the Shraddhalu is also taken care while it's giving boost to the economy. And in Prayag it was taken care. I'm sure the message should go to other facilities.
How does the private entity enter in this one? Now, had there been a private partnership along with the UP government's involvement, this investment that came through, Sriram, how do you think this model would have worked? And let's say not a scaled up model like the Maha Kumbh 2025, but say a far more scaled down model like a Brahmotsavam at Tirupati.
Right. Anand, just a couple of points, right? I think it's a very important point to note. I've re-emphasized this in my discussions with you earlier. The functionality of these institutions, either the temple or the Dharmic ecosystem, is its core, right? Yeah. Because if you take, for example, let's take Southeast Asia, right? You go take Angkor Wat and all these places where all these, temples are there, but they're not functional Hindu temples, right? Or functional Dharmic institutions. So that is the essence of its, ability both as a religious institution as well as an economic, institution. So I think that needs to be taken care. That sanctity needs to be maintained, in my view, as sanctimonious as possible, right? What we are talking about is the economies of scale that are developed as an extension of this, right? Which means you create the platform, you create the sanctity, you don't compromise on all of that. For example, the cleanliness of the Ganga or how sanctimonious the entire religious institutions, the agamas, whatever is required for those institutions to be sanctimonious, right? That would be first priority. The second priority is, or what we are talking about is, as an extension of this, at the exterior level, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, tourism, in terms of localized economies of scale, localized entrepreneurs, that's where the private sector and the combinations that you talk about, collaborations, to liberate those economies of scale. You essentially want to liberate those markets so that, market players come into the play.
Correct.
In the support infrastructure for these, events. And I think that distinction is very important. So, because essentially this is a place for astikas to come and, to have this spiritual experience.
Correct.
How both as a state, I think the state's point of view should be facilitating, this as sanctimoniously as possible, with as comfortable as possible, providing all the support infrastructure. And the private sector, because of the economies of scale, is just created as an extension, around this ecosystem, how do you leverage that for more decentralized, at least in the tier 2, tier 3 city level, to
Right.
expand those economic scale? My last point is, it is just not investment for that particular event, right? Of course, there's a temporary city in the case of the Kumbh, but there are a lot of support infrastructure that comes which stays
Correct.
on beyond the,
Yeah,
right?
like
How do you
flyovers, railway
develop that
stations,
further
airports, so many
with
roads,
these
highways.
partnerships,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's how I think the thinking should be, in my view.
No, very well said. Yes, Shantanu.
I mean, just adding on to what Sriram said. So, whatever money the central government and Yogi government spent, as he rightly said, 75 to 78% was permanent infrastructure, which is from airport terminals to highways coming in from Ayodhya, Kashi, Azamgarh side to Prayagraj, which is the street lighting of the Prayagraj city, which is the Chauraha installations of Prayagraj city, the sewage management system of Prayagraj city. And a lot of experts are saying Prayagraj has become the top 50 towns in this process of whole of India. So it's not even a expenditure, that's an investment, I should say, right? So that's upping the game of Prayagraj as a city, as an urban town itself. And private players are beautifully formed in during the Maha Kumbh. Let's say I was told that the tenting facility of India has increased 10 times. So earlier, before Prayag, if you want to set up so many tents, it was not even possible. There were only 2-3 players. Now there are 15 big tenting players because there are 1 lakh 5,000, almost 1.5 lakh. The Pota cabin toilets to the lot of what do you say, the cleaning facilities, new machineries are being invented to cleaning and the sieving and the filtering the Ganga. So a lot of new innovations, a lot of private companies came. Let's say I heard the Reliance launched this Campa campaign. So if you say
Yes.
a lot of advertisement was done by the Campa. So a lot of Patanjali did a lot of things on the boats.
Well, all round, if it is all collective good and greater good for the country and a big, huge boost, not just for us economically, but also spiritually, then more the merrier. Let there be perhaps for more proliferation of such initiatives across the country, somewhere on these contours of Dharmanomics, if I may pinch that word from Sriram again. So great book that he's penned. Shantanu, eagerly await your next one. But thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.